Today I'm going to take a look at this news article, which is a classic example of using statistics to mislead. Whether or not there was an intention to mislead or not is kind of irrelevant, because that's the potential result. So we can see the headline here that heatwave related deaths rise 68% in 20 years. So it talks about that in the first paragraph. It's referring to a study, and then it says that they call for an urgent shift to renewable energy, which is kind of something you hear about all the time these days. And then it goes on to give a little bit of more details here from the study. So it says that the team analysed the global impact of rising temperatures on public health and the economy, and they found that heat-related deaths increased 68% between 2017 and 2021 compared to the period 2000 to 2004. And it says that higher global temperatures are also becoming a threat to crop yields, and the number of people suffering from food shortages has increased by many millions. So if we have to go to the study in question, so this is the Lancet, which is a prestigious medical or health journal. And we can see here what the news article is reporting. So it says, because of the rapidly increasing temperatures, of vulnerable populations, which is adults over 65 and children younger than 1 year of age, were exposed to 3.7 billion more heatwave days in 2021 than over the period 86 to 2005. And that therefore heat-related deaths increased by 68%. So, and then also if we go further down here, it talks about COVID, and then here we go. It also says high temperatures threaten crop yields directly, with the growth seasons of maize on average 9 days shorter. And then a similar thing with wheat and spring wheat 6 days shorter. It talks about 98 million more people reporting food security in 2020 than one of the past averages. But it also goes to point out that prevalence of undernourishment during the pandemic rose significantly. So obviously the question there is some of that actually due to the pandemic and also government interventions rather than just purely the climate? So it's worth pointing out actually, in terms of global crop yields, they have actually gone up. So it says that the amount of growth days is reduced for certain crops, but if you go and look up at the figures, we can actually see that things like maize and wheat yields have actually increased. Pardon me. So if we go back to the main claim here, so it's certainly true, presumably from their figures, that heat deaths have increased by 68%. But of course, what it doesn't point out is that the global population has increased significantly over that roughly 20-year period. And so therefore, the headline figure of 68% looks worse than it really is. So if we go to, there we go, if we go to this Twitter post by Bjorn Lomborg, he points this out. So the data he's claiming that actually, once you take into account that there's a bigger population over that period, and therefore more people over 65, then the actual number of heat deaths is actually increased by just 5%. And also an important point here is that the report doesn't put it into context, the amount of people killed by cold, and I don't know if his figures are correct, but he's claiming that that's actually reduced quite significantly. So if we go back to the news article here, it's not that the article is actually wrong, but it's a typical problem with using statistics and percentages, that if you don't give the full context, you can give a misleading picture. So, a 68% increase in heat-related deaths sounds absolutely horrendous. But when you actually take into account the population increase, it's certainly nowhere near that figure. And now when you also look at the converse issue of reduced heat deaths because of global warming, then the picture is totally different. So, I mean, it's fairly typical of reporting on climate change, actually, that it's kind of very one-sided, and I've no idea whether the journalists in this article, didn't realise that the world population has increased and that you need to take that into account to give a true picture, or maybe they didn't think it was relevant. You'd also wonder why the authors of a Lancet study haven't mentioned that, because it's such an important piece of context. So certainly, whenever you see news reports or even studies in a prestigious journal using these kind of figures, it may not always tell the whole story.